Woman files for divorce after seeing this photo. At first look, the Millers appear to be a typical American family, comprised of Mark and Sara and their 2 young children. But while the family may appear normal now, it hasn't always been that way. Nobody understood what was going on behind the surface. Sara has been with Mark since she was 15 years old, and the couple appears to have grown up together. They became quite close very shortly after meeting, and there was a good reason for that. Sara first met Mark when she and a handful of pals went to hang out in an abandoned warehouse where many young people were squatting. This was a local hangout that frequently had parties going on beneath the radar of the cops and was therefore quite popular in the little town. Mark had only been residing at the warehouse for a few weeks at the time. When Sara and her companion came, along with a few other individuals, he was first quite quiet and didn't make eye contact. He sat alone outside the building for most of the night. The other squatters who had been in the warehouse for a long time informed Sara and her pals that this had been the situation since he arrived. They weren't fans of his disruptive conduct, but they weren't about to expel a 16-year-old who had nowhere else to go. It will be great if you like and share this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon next to it to get notified when we add new interesting videos in the future. Now, let's get back to the story. Sara had a crush on Mark. Sara became increasingly intrigued in Mark as she spent more time at the warehouse and as the night progressed. Something about his appearance and intriguing nature drew her in. She made her move because she couldn't take her gaze away from him. Sara decided to separate Mark from the group to see if he would become more communicative when he was alone. They had plenty of room to go around and converse because the warehouse was rather large, and Sara was not dissatisfied with her decision. When it was just the 2 of them, Mark rapidly shed his bashful manner and appeared to be really interested in Sara. They had a lengthy and interesting talk, during which Mark did not divulge anything about himself. He did, however, provide Sara with some information. When Mark, 16, moved into an abandoned warehouse with a group of strangers, he had no idea who he was or where he came from. When he met Sara, she couldn't get him out of her mind and took him home to meet her family. Her parents were taken aback when Mark detailed his position, and they realized they had to do something to assist him. After she persuaded that she truly loved Mark, they made a huge choice that would save Mark from his hazardous situation. He obtained a lot of work as a freelance photographer after getting his photography degree approximately 3 years later, and he built quite a strong name for himself. But he was still very secretive about his history, which was beginning to alarm Sara. What could he possibly be concealing from her? Sara and Mark had been together for approximately 7 years and were expecting their first child when they decided to marry. Sara had planned to finally meet some of Mark's relatives during the wedding, but just his buddies attended. There wasn't a single person there who knew Mark before he arrived to the city at the age of 16. Mark had a number of assignments throughout the years where he was shooting images for magazines that were a little more provocative. Sara had seen some of these shots and couldn't help but feel uneasy about Mark taking these type of photos. Sara was envious and at times anxious about the situation. She'd always heard horror stories about what might go wrong between photographers and their models. She knew Mark wasn't like that, but she couldn't get the notion out of her head. Despite the fact that Sara's concerns were not going away, she believed they were not serious or substantial enough for her to complain to Mark about. These photo shoots were frequently quite lucrative, and the benefits clearly outweighed the drawbacks for her. She also still had faith in Mark. Sara's husband Mark pulled all of the money in their spending account out of their account without explanation that morning. He had discovered an investment opportunity and wanted to seize it swiftly before someone else did. Sara was aware that she had spent far more than usual, but she had not anticipated seeing it at the register when she went to pay for her groceries. Mark had never previously expressed an interest in investing. They'd always had money for it, but Mark didn't want to be preoccupied with it all the time, and Sara had no idea how she'd manage something like that. Aside from that, there was something quite weird about this investment. All Mark could tell Sara about it was that it was a startup in its early stages with little information available to the public. According to Mark, this meant that nothing about the firm had been published online or anywhere. This raised a lot of red flags for Sara. Sara had observed that part of her husband's travel did not tally up. She also noted that he appeared less interested in being amorous with her while he was at home. The house phone rang late at night when Mark was on one of his outings. However, when Sara went to answer it and gave her identity, the caller instantly unplugged the connection. Sara was taken aback by this and hastily jotted down the weird number. Sara went to Google with the phone number to see if she could maybe find out more about who was calling her at this time of night, and discovered a stunning finding after trying to call the number back a couple of times and getting disconnected before the second ring every time. Sara immediately learned that she couldn't get the specific number since it didn't appear in any of her searches. But what she did discover was that the area code corresponded to the place where Mark frequently flew. Sara had reached her breaking point. She'd always said she wanted to keep Mark's privacy as much as possible, but enough was enough. There were too many red signals for her to ignore, and she needed to figure out what was going on. So Sara headed to the only place she could think of for answers, the library. Sara went to Mark's home computer to try to log in. It's protected by a password that Mark never provided to her. He presumably believes Sara is unaware, but she discovered a crumpled piece of paper on the ground on which it was written months ago. She unlocks the computer and is instantly met by a plethora of beautiful arranged folders full of photographs. Sara is somewhat taken aback by the overwhelming volume, but she quickly recovers. She knows just where to begin her quest. Sara has a freshly updated spreadsheet with Mark's flight history stored on her phone and begins looking for images from a few days following Mark's visits to the city he frequented. Sara had received a call from the same city the night before. Sara, on the other hand, was taken aback by what she discovered. Sara couldn't discover any images from these exact eras as she moved from old to new. Sara anticipated that one of the first things Mark would do after returning from work would be to upload the fresh images on this computer, so it's safe to assume he didn't go on these excursions to snap photographs at all. Sara, on the other hand, eventually comes with a folder she was seeking for. It was dated just a few days after Mark's most recent visit to the city. Sara opened the packet, her fingers trembling with excitement. She felt as though she was ready to witness anything besides this. All of the photographs in the folder are of Mark, but not just of Mark by himself, but also of him with another family, another wife and 2 kids. Sara had never seen these folks before and couldn't believe her eyes when he saw them. It can't be true. Sara discovered that her husband Mark was leading a second life and had another family on the side. Was her family aware of her existence? Is it possible this explains everything? All she can think of is her life crashing to the ground. She realizes she must leave Mark and file for divorce. When Mark returns home the next day, he is confronted with everything the instant he comes into the house. Sara informs her husband Mark that she intends to divorce him, but he suddenly says something that utterly stops her in her tracks. He attempts to persuade her that he can explain it, but Sara is unconvinced. They settle down when both of them have cooled down, and Mark begins to explain everything. It comes out that Mark has a twin brother named Eric who lost his finger at a young age due to a lawnmower accident. Eric, unlike Mark, was not a fan of the so-called straight and narrow. When the brothers were growing up, he got himself into a lot of mischief from an early age, which meant he and his brother fought a lot. However, Eric was not the only one behaving in this manner. Mark's parents were also heavily involved in a number of procedures that should never have seen the light of day. Mark understood from a young age that he needed to be away from his family in order to escape becoming like them. He departed when he was 16 years old, armed only with a bag, in pursuit of a new beginning. Eric's position deteriorated throughout the years after Mark severed relations with his family, culminating in his arrest only a few months ago. He was accused of being a repeat offender and sentenced to 5 years in prison. Eric saw this as an opportunity for self-reflection and resolved to change his life. He knew there was only one person who could assist him with this, and that person was Mark. He contacted him from jail, and after much debate, Mark agreed to assist. Mark had to keep his assistance to Eric a secret since he still didn't want Sara to know anything about his family. He was concerned she might try to contact them. The lost funds were used to pay Eric's bail and assist him in getting back on his feet. After getting his brother out of jail, Mark paid Eric several visits to check how he was doing and to assist him in transitioning to a new life. Away from the poor road Eric was previously on, and all of Mark's hard work began to pay off swiftly. Eric had gotten work as a garbage collector just a few weeks after being freed. Not only that, but he met a woman with whom he fell head over heels. The woman was divorced and already had 2 children of her own, and her presence proved to be just what Eric required. Mark decided to do a picture shoot with Eric and his new family on his most recent trip to see his brother. The previous night, Sara had received a call from Eric who wanted to know whether Mark could give him a certain photo. Eric, on the other hand, had evidently been drinking and had forgotten he wasn't supposed to contact the house. Sara was having trouble absorbing all of the information she was receiving. Mark, on the other hand, appeared to have proof for everything he said. Sara was just one thing left to do. She had to meet Eric. She was finally going to meet someone from Mark's family. The much-anticipated encounter goes off without a hitch. Mark and Eric are both very sorry for keeping this all a secret. And while Sara is still furious about it, she understands. She believes Mark was correct in this prediction that she would try to make contact. Mark and Sara swear that they would no longer hide secrets from one another, and the two families begin to develop a nice friendship over the following few months. And the photo that almost caused Sara to file for divorce is now prominently displayed in Eric's living room. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. See you on the next one. Bye.